What if I told you your life is not small, your thinking is? One simple question and one quiet moment can change everything. In a quiet town, there lived a young man named Elias. He was not rich, famous, or seemingly special. He worked in a cramped, dusty supply warehouse. Every morning, he opened the heavy doors early, swept the concrete floors, and organized crates of hardware. His hands were often covered in grease, and his clothes smelled of old metal. The warehouse was dim, but it had one high, narrow window. Elias sat near that window during his breaks. From there, he could see the vibrant town square where tourists took photos and artists occasionally sat with their easels. He watched them quietly, and a soft voice inside his heart whispered, "This life is not for you." Elias had always loved the feel of a brush in his hand. He loved the way colors blended to create a sunset or the depth of a forest. But life had been difficult. Responsibilities had piled up, and he told himself to be realistic. Every time he thought of picking up a palette, fear came faster. What if I'm not good enough? What if I waste my time? So Elias stayed quiet. He worked, he survived, and he kept his paints hidden in a wooden box under his bed. One evening, Elias finished his shift late. The sky was a soft, bruised purple. He sat on the warehouse steps and pulled out a small canvas he had been working on in secret. It was a painting of the very road he looked at every day, but in his painting, the road glowed with golden light. For a moment, he smiled. Then fear spoke, "This is useless. You are just a warehouse worker." He quickly hid the canvas in his bag and walked home. The next morning, an old man named Julian came to the warehouse to pick up some supplies. Julian was a man of few words but had very sharp, observant eyes. He happened to see Elias's canvas peeking out from his bag on the workbench. He picked it up and studied the brushwork. "Did you paint this?" Julian asked. Elias felt his heart race. "Yes, just for practice," he said softly. Julian looked at the painting, then at Elias. "Why are you hiding this?" he asked. "You live in a small room, Elias, but your window is big. Why are you always looking down?" Elias didn't know how to answer. Julian continued. "Most people do not fail because life is hard, they fail because they think small. If nothing was stopping you, no fear, no limits, what would you paint?" That night, Elias couldn't sleep. He looked at the stars through his bedroom window and finally allowed himself to think freely. "I want to paint the world. I want people to feel something when they see my colors." The next morning, Elias made a brave decision. He didn't quit his job, but he stayed 1 extra hour every night in the quiet of the warehouse. He set up a small easel by that narrow window. He practiced his strokes, learned how to capture the light, and began sharing photos of his finished paintings online. At first, there was only silence, and a few people liked his work. A stranger commented, "This moved me." Elias smiled. Fear was still there, but it was getting weaker because his thinking had changed. Weeks passed. One day, a local gallery owner reached out. "I saw your paintings online," she said. "They have a unique soul. Can we feature a few in our next showcase?" Elias's hands shook, but he said, "Yes." He worked with a new sense of purpose. When the showcase opened, people stood in front of his canvases, captivated by the light. One evening, Elias sat by the same narrow window in the warehouse. The crates and the dust were the same, but Elias felt different. Julian came by and saw him sketching. "You cleaned the window," Julian said with a smile. Elias looked up and smiled back. "No," he replied softly. "I cleaned my thinking." Life didn't change overnight, but Elias changed first, and that changed everything. Your thoughts build your future. When you think bigger, you grow, not quickly, not easily, but surely. Ask yourself today, am I thinking small because of fear, or am I brave enough to think bigger? Remember, when thinking changes, life changes. If this story spoke to your heart, subscribe to keep the motivation going and to find your inner strength with inspirational stories like this. Thank you for watching.